I started really when my mother would allow me to ride my bicycle uptown, downtown in a little town, and visited the radio station and hung around. Then in high school, they let me help carry stuff on remotes and things like that, and hang around the control room and that sort of thing. So, it was in my blood at that point. And then they joined the union, and I couldn't be around anymore. WDZ's third oldest station in the nation. I felt part of it from when I was 14 or so. Had 6 studios around Central Illinois. Dad was a physics and chemistry teacher, and he bought me kits from Allied Radio or whatever they were in those days. That's how I got started with the electronics part.
Jim Wulliman built quite a broadcast engineering career that took him to Connorsville, Indiana and Decatur, Illinois before heading north to Wisconsin. His first responsibility in the Badger State? Put public television on the air in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I came up there, and Niall and I, well, you mentioned Paul Taft earlier. Paul came up as program manager to MATC, and Niall and I came up to be chief engineer and assistant, and build what became Channel 10. We had equipment to put 36 on the air, and we thought, well, if one educational station's good, maybe 2 are even better.
Then it was on to WTMJ, where Jim spent 20 years.
Jim Wulliman was the chief engineer at WTMJ for both radio and television, and was here as they were going through phenomenal changes in the technology of broadcasting, bringing on color, bringing in smaller cameras. Jim Wulliman was a quiet manager, and he had, I think, the largest department in the WTMJ operations. The engineering departments usually, in those days, were larger than they are now, and he ran it well.
The ideal engineering manager. He was not only technically knowledgeable, but had a great way to administer his staff in a friendly, positive, and yet very professional way. Jim was a good mentor to me, and by that I mean that he allowed me to do different projects and to try different things from an engineering standpoint to see if they would work, to see if they would improve my engineering capability, and to be there to support me as an engineer, to make sure that we could work together and again do the best we could for the good of the final product.
Jim eventually became active in engineering organizations, particularly in the Society of Broadcast Engineers.
Right, and that was one of the things I liked about TMJ, although I didn't know it really when I went to work there. But they cared enough about the broadcast community and their part in it as a corporation that they would, as long as the money held out, they'd allow a certain amount of that. It wasn't just engineering. Program director was involved with their group's news and so on.
I immediately became a member myself because I saw the value in associating with a professional organization. Jim founded the idea of certification for broadcast engineers to show a level of achievement and training, to make sure that the engineers were not only receiving a one-time certificate, but required retraining and retesting every 5 years in order to maintain that certification. It became the hallmark, the standard of all broadcast engineers in this country and actually globally.
A fellow named Ben Wolf, who was chief engineer of a Baltimore station and had been with the FCC, thought that the license mills were dumbing down the FCC exams. And he and some college prof types developed an early test that if you want to be a chief engineer, you should pass this. And so it didn't get off the ground politically, but within SBE, we talked about it. And we had some meetings to generate new questions. One of the points of the committee over time was to keep, to have people who are certified keep up with what's going on, the experience you need today. And I see this and still keeping up with what they're doing in the certification program with training and so on, and adding new specialties. At one time we thought we didn't want any specialties. We wanted to be generalized. Well, the industry has changed.
He is a shining example of what is all good about engineering.
Golly. I think meeting many, many wonderful people over the years is one of the best things that happened to me. I think having experience in a mixture of the public TV sector and the commercial TV sector in a good company, it's TMJ and Journal Broadcast Group. It's not my accomplishment, but it's being able to participate in an industry where people care. And sadly, you realize too often nowadays that there are those group owners who have forgotten that.
Jim Wulliman was the chief engineer through remarkable change times, and he handled it very well, very well. And I think that earns him the Hall of Fame title.
How would Jim Wulliman like to be remembered?
He contributed a little bit along the line in a field that he enjoyed being with from high school days, and it's nice to be able to contribute when you like what you're doing.